There are moments that splinter time in two, the kind of moments you will recall for the rest of your life, not just for their impact, but for the way they echo through every breath and heartbeat that follows. For me, it began with the brutal, unmistakable sound of my husband's hand as it cracked against my cheek, echoing off our marble floors, slicing through the pristine serenity of my Victoria Island paradise like a thunderbolt. The pain, sharp and cold, left more than a mark on my skin. It rumbled through my bones, crumbling the illusion of my perfect life. I staggered backward, clutching the ornate side table, the one with family photographs and souvenirs from happier times, desperately seeking to steady myself. But inside, I was falling, endlessly. In that dazed, trembling blur, I saw Chitty, my once loving Chidioro, his face a twisted mask of anger and disdain, chest heaving, eyes burning with an intensity I'd never seen. Somehow, the room felt colder, harsher. Subscribe and hit like. Our powerful stories add years to your life. Join our Story Lovers Club and let us know in the comments, where are you listening from? The woman behind him, striking, unfamiliar, her beauty edged with something mocking, smoothed her expensive weave and watched me with a superior smirk. "You brought this on yourself, Adunni," Chitty's booming voice accused, reverberating through what used to be our sanctuary. It was the same voice that once swore lifelong devotion just 15 years ago, now weaponized to undermine and wound. As my mind replayed that instant, something broke inside me. Our marriage, the power couple, the envy of Lagos's elite, suddenly felt like a cruel joke, a glass house shattered in a single blow. I was numb and humiliated, but somewhere beneath the grief, a spark of outrage caught fire. What would you do if you walked in on this? Have you ever been betrayed before? Share your story, because this is mine. My name is Adunni Okoro, and until half an hour ago, I believed I was the luckiest woman in Lagos. Success is a facade, easily polished for public display, until life decides to scrape away the varnish. I, Adunni, built myself from the ground up, a celebrated fashion designer, the owner of the coveted boutique in Lekki Phase 1, who dressed Lagos's social elite and politicians' wives. My husband, Chidioro, commanded respect as one of the city's top real estate moguls. Our partnership was the talk of the town. Our 3 children, Kem, 16, brimming with sharp wit, Tund, 14, quiet and strong, and little Funmi, a sparkling 8-year-old joy, made our family picture perfect. On social media, magazines, and at galas, we were the Okoros, embodiment of class and ambition, adored and envied in equal measure. Our marriage was meant to defy the odds. Love, laughter, and shared dreams held tight against the ever-present undercurrent of Lagos's social politics. But the illusion unraveled with terrifying speed. That day, I was soaring on the news of a new milestone, a lucrative contract with a politician's wife, a deal sure to elevate my boutique to new legendary heights. I'd left my client meeting early, eager to delight Chitty with the news, all while imagining the celebration we'd have together. Yet before I even fully stepped inside, alarms rang in my senses. The house's silence was unnatural, heavy, layered with an unfamiliar, aggressive scent of perfume, sweet but brash and unfamiliar. It trailed through the entryway, drifting upstairs, guiding me like an omen towards the master bedroom. Hushed voices, laughter, another woman's laughter, leaked through the barely open door. What I saw on the other side yanked the rug out from beneath my entire existence. Through the crack in the door, I saw what no wife should ever see. My husband of 15 years lay in tangled sheets with a woman little older than our oldest daughter. Her deep brown skin gleamed against the backdrop of my best Egyptian cotton. Gold jewelry covered the bed, as if mocking me with every glint. Neither of them even noticed that I was there, standing frozen in horror and confusion, my luxury handbag sliding from my shaking hand to the floor, an unheeded casualty of this carnage. The world began to tilt, every sensation receding into a buzzing void. Only when they looked up did reality unfreeze. Chitty scrambled, a tornado of guilt, shame, and most infuriating, defiance flashing across his face. The woman laughed, not a nervous giggle, but a triumphant, deep-throated laugh that shattered whatever dignity I had managed to hold on to. "Aduni, I can explain," Chitty spat, but his excuses fell dead on arrival. 15 years. My voice, small and wounded, escaped into the growing tension. 15 years, Chitty. But Blessing, her real name I'd soon learn, stretched languidly across my bed, utterly unashamed, and interrupted with a venomous purr. "Oh, honey, it's been longer than that." 3 years, actually. She wore her role as mistress like a badge of honor, spreading her arms wide across the sheets I had so carefully chosen. Her words seared through me, the betrayal growing fangs. They weren't just stealing kisses or secrets. Chitty had built a secret world, rewriting the rules of our life for years, while I played the part of the devoted, blind wife. The humiliation metastasized into a hot, dizzying anger as Blessing declared, "Didn't he tell you we're in love?" What followed was a blur of shouts, accusations, confessions so cutting they felt like physical blows. Each revelation scaled new heights of pain. Chitty had carved out a parallel existence for Blessing, housing her lavishly in a Banana Island apartment, her every whim funded from the same business accounts I'd once seen as a testament to our partnership. He'd whisked her along on business trips, the solitude I so often respected, now recast as adulterous getaways. Then came the devastating gut punch. She's pregnant, 4 months along. She's carrying my son, something you, Aduni, failed to give me, Chitty said, with a pride so venomous it left me unable to breathe. All at once, memories of our years struggling to conceive flashed before me. The fertility treatments, the self-blame, the quiet hope. I'd believed it was my burden. Now I saw the truth. Chitty hadn't just strayed. He had tried to construct elsewhere what he thought was lacking at home. Then, everything boiled over. Driven by an agony deeper than words, I lunged toward Blessing, aiming to erase that infuriating smirk, to make her feel just a fraction of the agony that was choking me. But Chitty intervened, his body moving with a sharpness I'd never known. His hand, large and merciless, met my face with a second explosive slap. If the first slap was shocking, the second, done not to restrain, but to protect his mistress, was annihilating. "Don't you dare touch her," he roared, feral. All the pain of those years, the unity we'd forged, meant nothing in that instant. Each nerve in my face blazed, but the real wound was inside. Somewhere trust once lived. My husband, the man who'd promised to always defend me, had chosen another woman, his pregnant mistress, over the wife who had built an empire by his side and raised his children. Standing there, pride in ruins, my face throbbing, I felt something inside me crystallize, an icy clarity, a cold and powerful force that would define everything that came next. Chitty and Blessing began whispering, already plotting next moves, dismissing me as if I was nothing more than an inconvenience. They expected me to crumble, to accept my demotion, just another beautiful Nigerian wife, swallowing humiliation for the sake of appearances. They didn't know who they were dealing with. I turned without a word, my bag in hand, leaving behind the life I'd fought so hard to build. They thought they'd won, that my defeat was sealed. Let them believe it. Adoniakoro wasn't built for obedience or defeat. If revenge is a dish best served cold, they were about to taste something sub-zero. My plan for retribution was just beginning, fueled by the depth of my heartbreak and the ferocity of a woman who refused to be counted out. For a while, the world beyond those walls faded to a dull, interminable hum. My driver, Io, greeted me at the gate with the familiar, "Madam, welcome," but his voice barely registered. The weight of what I had witnessed threatened to steal the ground from under me. My hands trembled as they clutched my bag, the one that moments ago had felt like a badge of triumph, now transformed into a shield barely strong enough to keep my battered heart in place. There is a particular loneliness that washes over you when your reality collapses, when each step echoes through the hollow chambers of betrayal. I sat in the car, motionless, as the city's honking horns and swirling dust seemed to highlight my new isolation. I could picture my children, blissfully unaware, returning from school to a home splintered by secrets. Just that morning, Funmi clung to my waist and giggled, "Mummy, you're my superhero." The piercing irony nearly took my breath away. I pressed my cheek against the cool glass, willing it to absorb the fire that still seethed beneath my skin. I've always believed that if you make your heart too soft, the world will squeeze it dry. Now I realized a heart too hard becomes brittle, shattering under just the right blow. Should I scream? Rage? Call my sisters and cry? No. The first lesson a Lagos woman learns is, never let them see you bleed. I needed a plan, not just for revenge, but for survival. In the sanctuary of my mother's old sitting room, the one filled with flowered sofas and silent wisdom, I began to plot my next move. Tears flowed, finally, but only as fuel for my resolve. I replayed Chitty's dismissive words, Blessing's triumphant sneer, the sting of my cheek. All of it was raw material for the woman I would become. My phone convulsed with messages. My closest friend, Tola, sensed the hitch in my voice from our earlier call and wanted to know what was wrong. Is it work stress, Chitty? Bless her intuition. But I couldn't let anyone in. Not yet. In my world, even confiding to a sister could turn into tomorrow's scandal on a WhatsApp group. Silence is both armor and prison. I sketched strategies the way I sketched my most complicated dresses. Which assets were in my name, which accounts only I could access, which secrets I could leverage to keep my dignity, and what it would mean for my children. Something inside me whispered that I would not be destroyed, that I owed it to myself and those children to show them that a woman scorned is not a woman defeated. Night deepened. Alone amid ancestral portraits and silent prayers, I realized this was now a war. Not just against Chitty and Blessing, but against the entire machine that said a woman's value ends at her husband's approval. The rules had changed, and I would no longer play by theirs. Sleep did not come. Instead, I moved through memories, both sweet and sour, as the hours bled into each other. My mind replayed my wedding day, the tremble in Chitty's voice as he promised forever, the birth of each child amid tears and laughter, even quiet mornings of shared coffee as we dreamed of building an empire together. Now, each memory felt like a cruel betrayal, a lie folded in beautiful paper. But my pain was not just personal. It was historical. My mother's voice echoed in my head. A woman with a backbone is a threat, ADEMOYE. How many women had endured, adapted, reinvented themselves after heartbreak. All of them had walked this path before me, carrying sorrow with grace, then remaking the world in their own image. As dawn approached, resolve took the place of exhaustion. I wouldn't be the victim. I would be the author of my new story. I began drafting messages to my lawyer, quietly gathering copies of every important document Chitty might think he controlled. I called in my staff one by one, putting plans in motion to shield the business from any storm. Finally, I rehearsed the words I would need to say to my children, searching for a way to tell them that our family was transforming, but that they would always be loved, always be home, protected by a mother who never quit. I swore to myself I would not let them see me broken. Let the world watch. From these ashes I would rise. When the sun finally edged over the city, painting everything gold, I felt the first sting of hope. I tried to eat, managing just a few bites of pap, forcing my hands to steady as Funmi scampered into the kitchen, her school uniform rumpled, her smile still dazzling with innocence. Tund and Kem followed, groggy, still bickering over the last plantain chips. I kissed each of them, lingering longer than usual. My heart split along a fault line only a mother can understand, equal parts sorrow for their loss and joy in their mere existence. Chitty's absence hung in the air. The children did not ask. Perhaps, I realized with a pang, This was not the first time the tension had crept into our home, only the first time it had reached its crescendo. The moment arrived. After school, you'll come to Grandma's house. There's something Mummy needs to talk to you about. They nodded, perhaps sensing that this request was different. I watched them walk out into the sunlight, 3 pieces of my heart carried into the world on uncertain wings. As soon as the house was quiet, I gathered every financial statement, every property deed, every scrap of evidence of the empire we'd built, just as surely as I gathered my pride. The game was on. The first move was mine. My lawyer, Mrs. ADEMOYE, sharp-eyed, quick-witted, not easily rattled, listened as I explained everything. "Adunni, you know what they'll try to do," she said, her voice both cautioning and empowering. "They'll paint you as emotional, hysterical. They'll claim you're ruining the children's lives, the family name." I inhaled, grit lining my veins. Let them. But I want the truth known. I want a future where my children and I walk in sunlight, not shadows. The next days blurred into a whirlwind of action. Bank visits, legal consults, meetings with the teachers to warn them about changes at home. All was cold precision, overlaying the storm inside. Chitty, perhaps thinking I would cower, returned home twice, once to retrieve clothes, once to bluster and threaten. I met his rage with silence. When he tried to demand the keys to my boutique, I simply looked him in the eye and closed the door. I filed for separation. Blessing's pregnancy became the talk of the city. The shame threatened to choke me, but in the humiliation, I found a strange strength, the power to finally live on my own terms. With each step away from Chitty, each victory solidified my resolve. This was not the end of my story. The social whirlwind hit swiftly, as it always does in Lagos when scandal finds purchase. Before I had time to build emotional walls, the news spilled into every phone and conversation. Chidioro Okoro had left his wife for a younger, brazenly beautiful woman pregnant with his child. The whispers slithered through school gates and high society gatherings, blending pity and judgment in equal measure. Even staff at my boutique, their faces open one moment and close the next, wondered if this was a temporary spat, or the death knell of the city's most envied marriage. I felt the eyes on me everywhere, at the grocery market, in the foyer at church, under the glimmering chandeliers of our favorite restaurants. With every encounter, I fought the temptation to shrivel under the weight of their speculation. I corrected my posture and wore my brightest colors, refusing to let them see the toll the betrayal had taken. My children saw me that way too, straight spine, chin lifted, a smile wreathed in steel, and not a single misstep. But there were other moments, deeply private, when the anguish swelled like an electric current. My hands would quake as I tucked Fun Me in at night, remembering the bitter words that had torn through my home. Kem, my eldest, began asking harder questions. "Mama, why did Papa choose her?" The honesty required in those answers threatened to break me. The love with which my daughter wrapped her arms around me rebuilt my courage brick by brick. The loneliness arrived in tidal waves, but with every brush of judgment, every pitying glance, I felt a resolve gathering within. This city could devour the weak, but it would never digest me. I decided the narrative would be mine alone to shape. In the midst of this public unraveling, I forged a new kind of dignity, one built not from status or marital success, but out of raw determination and love for my children. The old definitions, polished for the benefit of others, no longer fit. I realized I needed to be more than a fashion icon or faithful wife. I needed to become a fortress. I needed to show other women that scars could be transformed into symbols of survival. My boutique thrived, refusing to collapse under the weight of gossip. If anything, the rumors drew new clients, women hungry for stories of resilience, seeking beauty woven from pain. I launched a new collection, bold and unapologetic, named Phoenix Rising. On opening night, arrayed in the first shimmering gown, I heard the applause and felt, perhaps for the first time, seen and valued beyond my relationship to Chitty. That evening, my staff presented me with a bouquet and a card from all the women who refused to break. Their words, a warm tide, washed over my battered heart. My customers shared their own stories in whispers over the fitting room door, their eyes searching mine for hope. Yet dignity was not forged alone. My best friend Tola was the first to demand, "Let's drink to freedom. You are not defined by this. You are not what he made you." Her encouragement became my anthem, her presence a lifeline in the storm. Each day, I learned anew that the world measured women by their capacity to rise again after men tried to shatter them. Every act of self-care, every determined smile, every lesson I taught my children was a stake in the ground. I was reclaiming myself, inch by painstaking inch. In time, the surprises began, not just from the gossip machine, but from unexpected sources of support. My mother, strong and wise, invited me for long walks, her anecdotes stitching together a safety net of ancestral strength. She told me about her own battles, quiet losses, and the dignity she'd found in rebuilding. The storm may tear off your roof, ADEMOYE, but it cannot uproot your foundation. Business partners reached out, offering not pity, but respect. My lawyer, Mrs. ADEMOYE, unfolded new strategies to defend what was mine, ensuring neither Chitty nor his new partner could leverage my success to their advantage. Staff members quietly protected sensitive documents, loyal not just to my position, but to the integrity with which I carried myself. Most unexpected was the silent support from women whose husbands had also betrayed them, women who had retreated from the spotlight, who now saw their own journey reflected in mine. Some called my boutique, not with requests, but with gratitude, telling me that my refusal to disappear had given them courage. The court filings became a theater of power and manipulation, a place where Chitty tried hard to wrestle control while painting me as cold, shrewd, and bitter. But each day, my team and I arrived prepared, outmaneuvering every new tactic. Through it all, I remembered, I was not just fighting for myself. I was showing my daughters and son what it meant to live with honor. As the dust settled on courtroom battles, deeper truths came to light. Chidi had built much of his empire on my intuition, my creative vision, my ability to connect with both the powerful and the humble. My name was everywhere, on contracts, partnerships, fashion events, business deals. The myth that he was the sole architect of our success splintered as evidence mounted. The tabloids attempted to sensationalize the feud, painting me as the vengeful ex-wife, obsessed and angry. But the truth found its own way out. My charity work, my educational initiatives, the quiet scholarships I'd made possible. Community leaders, politicians, even former adversaries weighed in, often quietly, proclaiming that Aduni Okoro deserved respect, not scorn. The public narrative began to shift. People talked, yes, but they talked about resilience rather than humiliation, about triumph rather than tragedy. The younger women who came into my boutique treated me not as awe-inspiring, but as attainable, someone who had lived through darkness without being consumed by it. Tund, my son, grew quieter and stronger amid the storm. He watched, listened, and absorbed the lesson that pain is not the end, and that men must be accountable for their choices. Kem grew fierce, demanding from her teachers what she saw in her mother, a refusal to tolerate disrespect. Lessons bloom. Funmi, despite everything, continued to tell everyone, "My mommy is a superhero." With each new truth unveiled, it became clear. This was not just a personal revolution, but a communal one. After months of battle and negotiation, I moved my children and myself into our own home, a bright, spacious place filled with laughter and promise. It was not in the shadow of Chidi's legacy, but defined by the hopeful spirit of those who lived within its walls. The freedom was intoxicating, if sometimes overwhelming. I had to redecorate, choose new colors, new artwork, new symbols of the life we were building. We found routines, weekend breakfasts on the veranda, movie nights when the city's relentless energy faded, the steady hum of hope that infused our conversations. The children adjusted, each in their own way. Tem kept a journal, writing stories of heroism as she imagined them. Tund excelled at soccer, channeling his uncertainty into energy and discipline. Funmi drew pictures of happy families. Hers always included a mother in a superhero cape. It was not perfect, but it was their own. Lessons bloom. There were nights when I lay awake, the ache of everything lost gnawing at my sense of progress. But each morning, when the sun cut gold ribbons through our new windows and the city sang its chorus of possibility, I reminded myself, we had survived the breaking. We were building something new. This was our renaissance. The world might have marveled at our fall, but it would be forced to admire our rise. With the chaos settling and life beginning to take root in our new home, something unexpected started blooming within me. A stubborn, rare seed of forgiveness. In the quiet moments after the children had gone to bed, and the street outside was just a distant hum, I found myself examining the complex tapestry of my marriage with Chitty. The passion, the dreams, the betrayals, all woven together with golden threads and jagged shards. This wasn't a naive forgiveness or an invitation to reconciliation. It was an act of liberation, a refusal to let bitterness define my future. I saw the ways in which our partnership had turned toxic, not overnight, but through thousands of neglected moments, small decisions, and silent wounds. It was humbling and painful to admit that two flawed people had tried and failed to nurture something sacred. I began to write letters I would never send, confessions, apologies, unspoken prayers. Each sentence was a brick laid in the foundation of my own healing. I spoke to my mother about forgiveness, and she reminded me that letting go was for my own peace, not Chitty's comfort. Forgiveness is not surrender, ADEMOYE, she said gently. It is the planting of new seeds. In time, I found that forgiving did not erase the agony or the injustice. It simply cleared space for joy and growth, for laughter in the kitchen with my children, for quiet pride in undiminished strength. I freed space within myself to love again, on my terms, unchained from the ghosts of what could never be. As weeks turned into months, the rawness of my wounds transformed into wisdom I was determined to share. I began hosting small gatherings at my boutique, not just for fashion, but for conversations among women about marriage, ambition, betrayal, and hope. My store was no longer just about clothes. It became a sanctuary for stories and solidarity. Women from all walks of life told their truths. Judges, market women, students, CEOs. We offered each other grace, advice, and companionship, reclaiming our voices in a society that frequently expected us to suffer in silence. Some shared their battles with betrayal, others with doubt, each one finding something of Adunni's story in her own path. I started a foundation, the Adunni Okoro Initiative, dedicated to providing scholarships for girls and business microloans for women rebuilding after loss. Lessons bloom. My own children helped pack books and sort donations, learning that strength meant service, not just success. I recorded my journey in a memoir, bearing the beauty and the pain, transforming my past into a lantern for young women navigating their way through the labyrinth of love and ambition. The project became a national conversation, confronting the stigmas associated with divorce, single motherhood, and female success in Nigeria. These lessons were carved in gold, meant to be passed on. I wanted my children, and every child who heard my story, to know adversity is not defeat, and dignity is always within reach. Though I wore my independence proudly, I slowly learned to welcome the possibility of love back into my life. It wasn't easy. Old wounds throbbed beneath new skin, and trust demanded patience and vulnerability. Friends teased and cajoled. My mother prayed. But I gave myself time, refusing to rush healing for the sake of appearances. When I met Olumide, a poet and entrepreneur, at a charity event, his gentle humor and respect for my journey caught my attention. He never tried to eclipse Chitty's memory or compete for my children's affection. Instead, he showed me that love could be quiet, steady, and kind, that the right partnership honored the past while nurturing the present. Olumide understood the architecture of pain and the promise of rebuilding. Our courtship was thoughtful, marked by long walks on Victoria Island, conversations about family and dreams, laughter over shared hopes. The children grew fond of him, slowly letting him into the circle of their trust. Kem grilled him mercilessly, and Funmi declared, "He tells great stories, Mum." Falling in love again, I realized, was not a betrayal of my past. It was an affirmation that life could be rich beyond sorrow, that the future was an unwritten canvas. I was not defined by loss, but by my ability to rise, to love bravely and generously. One evening, as I tucked Funmi in, she looked up with solemn eyes and asked, "Mummy, will we always be together?" I hugged her tightly, feeling the full weight of motherhood, its duties, its fierce joys, and its quiet fears. "Always," I whispered, "in every way that matters." I realized my legacy was not the boutique, not the headlines, not even the foundation. It was the exact imprint I left on my children's hearts. It was teaching Kem to speak truth in the face of adversity, showing Tund how to lead with empathy instead of pride, nurturing Funmi's boundless optimism and fire. I watched my children flourish. Kem gained admission to a top university, writing a powerful essay on resilience inspired by our journey. Tund excelled not just in soccer, but also in peer mediation, quietly bringing peace among his classmates. Funmi drew new capes for her mother, now illustrated with stars and flowers, symbols of hope rather than war. They carried my lessons into a world still learning to respect women's struggles and triumphs. Lessons bloom. Whatever challenges they faced, they would know how to rise. They would never let anyone steal their dignity. This was my true victory, the inheritance I built after surviving heartbreak. The day came when the shadows of betrayal faded, no longer the dominant feature of our family story. Lagos pulsed with its typical chaos and creativity, but I walked through it bright and unburdened. My boutique flourished, my initiatives touched lives, and my home echoed with laughter and hope. I stood on my veranda, watching the city lights flicker alive. The pain was still part of me, but so was the strength, the knowledge that I had outlasted destruction and built a new monument on its ruins. My story, once a tale of devastation, had transformed into one of growth, redemption, and breathtaking resilience. To every Nigerian woman, every woman everywhere whose life has been shattered by betrayal or loss, I say, do not close the book. Write a new chapter. Every scar bears witness to your survival. Every heartbreak contains the seed of tomorrow's joy. I am a Dunia Koro. I have walked through fire, and in its light, I found my freedom. My children walk beside me into a future alive with promise, one forged not by destiny, but by choice, courage, and unbreakable love. This is not the end. This is the new beginning.